Hello, everybody. Jean McDonald here with our transition tip number 2. Now, as I said, I myself have been going through a tough transition. And what's happened is in August, my brother had a seizure, and his landlords insisted that he um, he'd leave Santa Fe. And so I moved him up to Port Angeles and moved him into my house. Now he had a U-Haul full of furniture. So my house was it's a small house. It's 888 square feet. So we moved his sofa and his things into my house. Now, my boyfriend has a house and we've decided, well, my boyfriend should live with me and we'll fix up his house for my brother. But in order to fix my boyfriend's house up, we have to move his things in with me. So you see things around everywhere. And this was really stressing me out, as you would expect. This is a tough transition for my brother, a tough transition for myself, and in many ways tough for my boyfriend because he's having to put his favorite things in storage until we resolve this whole issue. So my solution, not well, my solution, but a way to look at this situation differently comes from it's a Jewish uh, folk tale from Poland, and I'm just going to read this to you. It's a little long, so we'll go a little bit over 5 minutes. But I really wanted to share this story because it's one that comes to mind, especially in the conditions that I'm living with right now. And the story is called "It Could Be Worse." A long time ago, there was a family that lived happily in a small, quiet house in Poland. One day, they learned that the grandparents were coming to live with them. The child was very excited about this, and so were the parents. But the parents worried because their house was very, very small. They knew that when the grandparents arrived, the house would become crowded and much noisier. The farmer went to ask the rabbi what to do. The rabbi says, "Let them come." So the grandparents move in. And they have a lot of furniture, which goes into the living room where they sleep and some of the other rooms too. It's crowded and noisy in the house, so the farmer goes back to the rabbi. "I did what you said, Rabbi. Now my in laws are here, and it's really crowded in this house." The rabbi thinks for a moment. Then he asks, "Do you have chickens?" "Well, of course I have chickens," says the farmer. "Bring them into the house." The farmer's confused, but he knows that the rabbi is very wise. So he goes home and brings all the chickens to live inside the house with the family. But it is no less crowded and noisy. In fact, it's worse with the clucking and the pecking and the flapping of the wings. The farmer goes back to the rabbi. "I did what you said, Rabbi. Now, with my in laws and the chickens too, it's really crowded in the house." The rabbi thinks for a minute and then he asks, "Do you have any goats?" "Of course I have goats," the farmer says. "Bring them into the house." The farmer's confused, but he knows that the rabbi is very wise. He brings all the goats from the barn to live inside the house. It is no less crowded and noisy. In fact, it is much worse, with the chickens clucking and flapping their wings and the goats baaing and butting their heads against the walls and one another. The next day, the farmer goes back to the rabbi. "I did what you said, Rabbi. Now my in laws have no place to sleep because the chickens have taken their bed. The goats are sticking their heads into everything and making a lot of noise." The rabbi thinks. He looks very puzzled. Then he says, "Ah, you must have some sheep." "Of course I have sheep," says the farmer. "Bring them into the house." The farmer knows that the rabbi is very wise, so he brings the sheep inside. It is no less crowded and noisy. In fact, it is much, much worse. The chickens are clucking and flapping their wings, and the goats are baaing and butting their heads. The sheep are baaing too, and one sat on the farmer's eyeglasses and broke them. The house is loud and crazy, and it's starting to smell like a barn. Completely exasperated, the farmer goes back to the rabbi. Rabbi, I have followed your advice. I have done everything you've said. Now my in laws have no place to sleep because the chickens are laying eggs in their bed. The goats are baaing and butting their heads, and the sheep are breaking things. The house smells like a barn. The rabbi frowned. He closed his eyes and he thought for a long time. Finally, he said, this is what you do. Take the sheep back to the barn. Take the goats back to the barn. Take the chickens back to their coop. The farmer ran home and did exactly as the rabbi told him. As he took the animals out of the house, his child and wife and in-laws began to tidy up the rooms. By the time the last chicken was settled in her coop, the house looked quite nice. And it was quiet. All the family agreed that their home was the most spacious, peaceful, and comfortable home anywhere. So, when you're going through a tough transition where your house is crowded and noisy, and you have to have a, you don't have to have, but you might be having a few meltdowns because of the stress, think about this story. It could be worse. That's it for today. I'm Jean McDonald. You can go to jeanmcdonald.com to click into recordings of these videos that I do and to find out more about transition coaching. Take care. Bye bye.